What are you seeing in the past week in terms of apprehensions at the southwest border?
And so we're seeing record lows of our apprehensions, right? And we base that on a lot of things, right? It's not just the additional manpower and resources we're getting from National Guard, from DOD, from pretty much every available agency out there. But a lot of it is also the consequence, right? So we're taking a total approach of this. We're enforcing the law. We're increasing the consequences. So what you see now is the probability of detection, apprehension, and then a consequence to being delivered. It takes the combination of all those above to drive these numbers down, and we're just getting started.
I saw that drug seizures are up specifically with cocaine and heroin since President Trump took office. I don't have March data yet, but is that something that agents are increasingly able to focus more on? And have you directed more agents to focus on interdicting narcotics?
So what we've done is we've directed agents to get out of processing, right? And so because we're providing the consequences, decrease the numbers of crossings and the numbers of entries, it's allowing Border Patrol agents to do what their job is, which is to protect the country. And so what you're seeing is that we can now focus on it. We've been saying for the last 4 years that large amounts of narcotics are getting away, and they're getting away because we didn't have the resources available to do a mass processing under the open border policies of Biden while still going out and doing our law enforcement duties. And so having additional law enforcement out there, having most of our agents back to patrol, it's allowing us to encounter those narcotics that we knew were coming across. So I don't believe that we're seeing an increase in smuggling of narcotics. What I believe is we're actually going out there and getting out there and being able to put our hands on those that are smuggling the narcotics. So you can expect to see our narcotics interdictions continue to rise as we continue to put more and more agents out in the field to interdict those narcotics.
Okay. And as far as referring cases for prosecution to DOJ, what types of cases, or I should ask this, are referrals up in general?
So referrals are up, but also the acceptance of referrals are up, right? And so one of the things you're going to see is that we had 4 days last week where we were one case shy of having 100% of all of our cases accepted. We missed one day of having an entire week of every case that we presented was accepted for prosecution. And that goes back to what I opened up with, right? The ability to apprehend, to detect, apprehend, and then to assure that some type of consequence is being delivered. That's going to continue to drive those numbers down. And we're seeing prosecutions at a rate we've never seen before.
Can you share with me any of those numbers and what you're prosecuting for?
So we're prosecuting for anything, any law they violate that they're amenable to. 1324 for smuggling, 1326, USC 1325. Those are some of your typical illegal entries, smuggling cases. But we're also getting high acceptance rates on the assault on agents. So we're seeing increases in those. We're seeing increases in conspiracy cases. Impersonating federal officers, where we encounter someone out there that is dressed like a law enforcement officer in order to avoid detection. We're seeing acceptance in those kind of cases. So, we're law enforcement. If they're amenable to prosecution under law, we're going to provide the maximum amount of consequence we can. And with our partners in DOJ, we're seeing a large acceptance of those cases.
Why do you think that number's gone up?
So I think a couple things. One, we got out of this mass fake parole and this mass fake asylum claims, right? We saw a lot of fraudulent asylum claims. And so because we've now lowered the number that are crossing, we've got a manageable number, and we're focusing on the criminals, we're focusing on the narcotic smuggling, we're focusing on the high value targets that are coming across, the drugs and the money that is being smuggled. And so because we've been able to relieve ourselves of this large mass humanitarian influx and drive those migrants to where they're supposed to go, to the port of entry, to make an application. It's freed up our agents to go out and make these apprehensions. It's also freed up the court system to focus on those that are doing, coming here criminally or committing criminal violations.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're having so few people come, which means fewer smuggling incidents, but the prosecutions are up, or they should say the referrals and the acceptances are up. So I think it speaks doubly to itself, if that makes sense.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, if you overwhelm a system with mass amounts of fraudulent asylum claims, it doesn't allow for the courts to be able to handle the caseload of those committing crimes. So we've gotten the massive fraud of asylum seeking fraud out of the way, and it's allowed us to focus on the criminal cases. It's also cleared up the clutter in the court system, allowing them to be able to effectively prosecute those cases.
I want to switch to talking about stash houses. What sectors are seeing more illegal immigration where immigrants are trying to evade Border Patrol and make it to stash houses?
And so I'll tell you on the evading, we're going to see our evading go. We have seen it go up. It's going up everywhere. Anywhere where illegal immigration is still happening, you're going to see now where they're trying to evade because they understand that those days of catch and release are ending. So they know if they're caught, they're going to be provided a consequence and ultimately return to their home. And so now what you've got is you've got law enforcement officers taking law enforcement actions, and so you're going to see more people that are going to try to flee because why would you give up if you know that you're going to be prosecuted and sent back to your country? And so we're back to where we need to be as far as enforcement, understanding that if you come, there's going to be a consequence. And so again, we start seeing more people that are trying to elude apprehension.
And Chief, can you tell me a little bit about, I know in El Paso, they have a team that specifically focuses on stash houses. Like, what is that called? And,
So, so
just,
each sector, a lot of the sectors utilize their own terminology, right? But ultimately, what we have is we have anti-smuggling units, and our anti-smuggling units, that's their main goal is they go after the networks that are doing the smuggling. They target those doing the smuggling, and stash houses are often the first location where illegal immigrants are hidden in their attempt to be smuggled north.
okay. So we hit on the how Border Patrol has pivoted. So I'm going to ask a few questions not related to that now. So there was a campaign to bring back Title 42 that Stephen Miller had mentioned. Is that still in the mix?
And so I believe this administration will utilize every option available, every legal option available. However, right now, we have not instituted Title 42. I believe that if it is a legal option, we should always apply every possible legal option in order to secure the border. Our goal is operational control of the border. And I understand that means no one enters. And if they enter, they're apprehended and they're provided a consequence. And that is our goal. We are closer to that goal than we've ever been in my 23 plus years career in the Border Patrol. But I will tell you that we're not going to stop until we get absolute operational control of the border. And to do so, we'll utilize every tool available.
I want to ask about some of the splashy videos that Secretary Nome and ICE and even President Trump have been making about deportations, getting some criticism about those, but I'm sure you're familiar with what I'm speaking with, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Do you think public fear is working as a deterrent?
So I don't believe that there's zero intent to create public fear. The
Okay.
intent is to send a clear message to anyone who wants to come to the country illegally. Do not come. If you come to this country illegally, you're going to be apprehended, you're going to be prosecuted, and you're going to be removed. That's the message we're sending out. And I believe that we have to message on every available platform. We have to message in speaking to the media, such as we're doing here today, because the message is important. And I think it's very clear. For 4 years, the message was just show up, you'll be apprehended, and you'll be released. And it takes time to get that message around to the rest of the world that that's not how we do business. If you come here and you violate the law, if you come here illegally, you're going to be apprehended, you're going to be prosecuted, processed, and removed. And I think we need to take advantage of every possible opportunity to make sure we're sending that message to the world. We want you to come here. We want you to come here illegally. America is a country of immigrants. We're built upon immigrants. Immigration is important for our country. We need it to strive, but you have to do it the right way. Do not come illegally or you will be removed.
Okay. Um, if the Illegal Enemies Act is upheld in court or even birthright citizenship is allowed to go through, um, how do you think that will impact illegal immigration? I said Illegal Enemies Act, Alien Enemies Act. So I'm going to let you start over, but just to be clear.
So to be very clear, we are law enforcement. We're we're the executive branch. We go out and execute the laws. Our job is not to determine what those laws are going to be. However, we're going to enforce every law to the fullest extent in order to drive down illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is a national security. The border security is the security of America. It is not just those states that sit along the U.S. Mexican border or those states that sit along the U.S. Canadian border. Illegal immigration and criminals coming to this country unabated affects the security and the safety of everyone in this country. And we will utilize every law that is available to us to uphold our national security and the sovereignty of the U.S.
The last question I had was, have the imposition of tariffs on Canada and Mexico and the threat for doing more, in particular, has that boosted cooperation on the fentanyl issue?
I'll tell you that we've seen unprecedented assistance and cooperation from both Mexico and Canada. As you've reported yourself, over 10,000 Mexican National Guard soldiers have been deployed to the U.S. Mexican border, along with additional federal law enforcement from Mexico. And we have seen where we are working hand in hand with them. We're doing what we call mirrored operations, where we're patrolling the same locations on both sides of the border. And again, their cooperation has been unprecedented. In my conversations with the Mexican government, they want the fentanyl to stop. They want the narcotics to stop, and they want the guns going south to stop. And so we're working together to combat that for the safety and security of both countries. And so long as Mexico is willing to cooperate and work with us for national security purposes, we'll continue to do the same thing for Mexico's national security.
And just to follow up to that, if Mexico is doing a lot at its border, I know the most fentanyl, 90% of seizures, not what's coming through, but seizures, happens at the ports of entry. So if Mexico is doing a lot, would we expect the OFO stats for fentanyl seizures at ports of entry to be going down possibly? Or, it's kind of hard to say, but what would you expect fentanyl?
So it's hard for me to speak to OFO's operations. I'd want to leave that for them. But what I think you can see is you will continue to see, and it's already visible, is that the narcotic stats, especially the narcotics apprehensions and seizures in the U.S. between the ports of entry where the Border Patrol patrols, you will see those numbers continue to go up. Those numbers continue to go up is not commensurate with the level of enforcement that's being done on the south side. It's commensurate with the fact that we already knew this narcotics were coming, and now our agents are freed up to actually go make those interdictions. And so increase in apprehensions and seizures of narcotics doesn't always necessarily equate to increase in smuggling. It equates to our ability to actually go out there and attack that threat of narcotics coming into the country. And we all know how deadly fentanyl is. It is very important to us. All narcotics are important to us, but we've seen an increase in fentanyl, and as you reported earlier, we've seen a large increase in cocaine, and that clearly shows that getting those agents out of processing and back into law enforcement is making a huge dent in the narcotic smuggling into this country, protecting Americans.
Can you share some of the ways in just one response? Because this would help at the beginning of my story where I'm writing it out, to say, how are agents pivoting from focusing on apprehensions and processing to what are some of the other things they're focusing on now increasingly?
So with the decrease in large numbers of illegal immigrants exploiting the asylum process, is allowing our agents to focus on getting back out to the field and conducting law enforcement operations. That includes, searching for those high value targets, chasing after those that are refusing to surrender, watching our gotaways decrease. I think that's very important. Our gotaways have significantly decreased, and I know you understand that gotaways are those attempting to flee apprehension because they know they have something in their criminal background that would prevent them from being released under the old administration. It's also allowing us to target known narcotic smuggling trends and paths. And so what you're seeing is our increase in prosecutions because we're targeting the criminals. You're seeing our increase in narcotic seizures because we're able to get out there. And so again, taking agents out of this babysitting role and out of this processing role and putting them back into the function they were trained to do, which is patrol the border, you're starting to see a huge return on your investment. And we're getting close. We're going to keep pushing hard, and we will gain operational control of the border.